today's session is discussing around what we call target operating model design and how do we explore different approaches to building target operating models. And I'll be giving some practical examples of how this can affect your organizational, whether it's culture, your strategy delivery efficiency, your products, your customer experience, and many other components. Sometimes we have good products, but we probably fail when it comes to how we organize ourselves as an organization to deliver value to the market. That's the essence of this session. I don't know, when you hear about the word target operating model, what comes to you? What comes to your mind? I'm sure most of us are relatable to business that we see out there. If you're driving on the highway, you see petrol stations. As you go to malls, you'll see, the eataries and the fast foods and the retail outlets. For those who are in Kenya, there are those fast-moving retail outlets we've seen growing the other day, like in a Carrefour, in a Quick Mart, Green Shells, and all that. But I don't know whether you've ever thought about what is driving their model beside the strategy. So what exactly is making them easy to replicate, easy to plug in, and be able to catch the attention of the market that they are targeting? I think that's the conversation that you're having today. How the nature of the business model can impact either strategy efficiency in terms of how you implement, and also how you're able to appeal to customers for value. So I like summarizing just to say it's designing for alignment, agility, and impact. So that means we are designing our organizations, our business, for alignment with purpose, definitely with the customer needs, but also there's agility because the business landscape keeps changing. So how do we ensure at least that we can easily adapt even when there are disruptions, like we all know about the COVID-19 that we just bounced from. So how design it for agility and also for impact, because at the end of the day, we want to deliver value to the customer. So I also like saying the business model need to be understood well, because if you don't design the fit for purpose operating model, we can have a good product, a good solution, a good service, but fail when it comes to its delivery. So I'm going to walk through 3 aspects just to give a quick global overview of this TOM. We like calling it TOM, Target Operating Model. We'll have an overview about it, and then towards the end, I'm going to showcase some of the principles, what I call purpose first TOM principles, when you're designing a purpose-led organization. We'll have another session probably where we can now go into deeper, expositions around now functional level purpose first principles. Let's say you're designing your sales distributions, you are designing your operations, you're designing the HR, the finance, and all that. So this is an initial cutting laser that will help us build a case for the next subsequent sessions. And this is a slide I always like putting when I talk about anything to do alignment. And I always like questioning here, what's the drift here? What exactly is happening in this case? With these, are they how many? I think there are 6 gentlemen. So what exactly is happening here? And I think it's very clear, you can see it's lack of alignment. So you endear to achieve a strategy, you endear to achieve a certain end goal, and you go ahead and put efforts, put all the operations, put the budget. If maybe these guys were to construct a 100 miles railway, they have already achieved 100 miles or 100 kilometers. So in terms of throughput and operations and productivity, yes, they have done it. But is it aligned to the right direction? And that's strategic intent, and to ensure at least it is delivering value. Maybe value here is to see people, the trains and the standard gauge railway, passing through here, and cargo is moving, people are moving. That's the essence, that's the impact, that's the ideal. But here you've delivered operations, meaning people are happy. Every day people are engaged. People have a JD, so there's motions. But question is, at the end of the day, have we met the expectation of our organization? This is the core fundamental of this conversation today. Let's talk about global outlook. And one of the things I spend a lot of time in corporate boardrooms, organization, workshops, whether it's for strategy, transformation, and all that. But I often see we have put ourselves into motions of transformation and change without first of all clarifying what are we transforming to and for. So you find organizations going through a whole motions, including restructuring. But after 3 years, you go back to the same drawing board. So the question, what's the problem? I don't think I'll bring the transformation. I'll bring probably the epicenter. What was driving that? Tom is just one of the things that sometimes, if you're not clear, you might transform, but you don't know exactly what you're dealing with. So it's just like you're having an infection in your body, but you don't know exactly where the epicenter is. So it helps organize, kind of have a systematic way of even self-checking, self-auditing when it comes to even assessing what could be eating, what could be affecting our business efficiency. So say execution without alignment is very expensive. I think this is quite a very expensive process. We usually say get it right, design fast, and then get the design right. Okay, I know that looks like a tongue twister. Get the right design fast, then get the design right. Meaning, first of all, build a layout of skeleton that is right. The design is right. But then you can continuously transform to try to strengthen and get that design right. It's like getting the right architectural drawing in terms of this is the way I want my masonry to look like. So I have the right design first, but then I can't get that design. I can refine that design over time to make it now, of course, more contextual and relevant. So that's the focus. So getting the design right is critical, but getting the right design fast is non-negotiable. I think that's just a closing statement for this. Now, as I listen to CEOs and many leaders in the market, it's clear that CEOs, or what I may call executive, they are moving towards purpose-led decision making, and they are leveraging on purpose to inform their strategy. I read this from a CEO Purpose Report 2023. So almost 9 out of 10 CEOs, they are using purpose to define purpose first. They are spending time to question, why do we exist first, before rushing into putting up any other structure of the business. So instead of looking at a product, the earlier days, what you used to do is this. You design a product, then you take the product to the market. Then when you're in the market, it's when you start modifying your strategy. And it used to fail because by the time you're designing the product, the customer is not there, or even the why you're designing the product for may not necessarily be at the center. So you design the product, and then later now you try to look for where, maybe to sell it. So it's like you initiate the product first, but you have to come and force it. So it becomes like more of a desktop work. Purpose-driven organizations are outperforming others. 10x for the last 15 years. I led this from the Harvard Business Review. And this is to anchor that the purpose-led, driver in terms of being a thrust or a driver for our organizational transformation is critical. So if for example, you are anchored on purpose, there's a tendency that you be relevant. Imagine, and I think I saw another research done by CB Insight that was saying 42% of the reason why organizations fail, or business, especially startups, is because of lack of need. So purpose validates the need, actually. So if you're purpose-led, it shows that there is already a need for something. So there's no way when you should be strong. Sometimes why we oversell and have to create a whole marketing and selling structures is because maybe the need is not there. McKinsey predicts that organizations that with strong purpose alignment, they deliver 3 times higher employee loyalty and 2 times more innovation output. So it's a very good focus around, again, why we need to be purpose-led. Gallup, I think these have been doing a lot of research around engagement, and they say, of course, disconnection, from purpose, which is we call disengagement mostly, cost global economy more than $9.6 trillion US annually. People showing up and waking up every day, but not engaged purely, just barely scratching the surface. So no discretion, no individual discretion to work. it's making the economy lose approximately 9.6 trillion annually. You all know it's more costly to have a disengaged employee. You rather not have that person. You rather not have declare that vacancy than to have somebody who is completely disengaged. There's no inner drive towards even what they do on a day-to-day basis. This is just an outlook to showcase that we need definitely to align to purpose. But then how does this conversion tie to target operating model? Now, there are things that make organizations try to change their model. First of all, is when they want to be responsive to customers. These are kind of triggers, some of the triggers that make organizations evolve in terms of structure. Why should you change your structure? You find sometimes it is when you want to become, let's say, customer responsive. Because traditionally, as I said, we used to have more what you call rigid product-based models than customer-centric. Sometimes also it's because of efficiency. We want to delay the organization. When I joined corporate more than 20 years ago, we used to have the hierarchy of like 20 different hierarchy of management. So you'll have an assistant manager, a senior manager, a general manager. Then you have assistant director, a director, executive director. By the time you reach into the CEO, from officer to CEO, 20. I think I remember we had 19 of them. So you can imagine that kind of an efficiency. That means decisions can have a long protocol of bureaucracy for approval. Currently now you're looking at a 3-layer, so almost a flat lean organization. That's a management efficiency issue. So you find like there's a 3-layered leadership matrix than what you used to have a bit earlier along. Some they are changing because of organizational renewal, because of maybe trying to be more agile, maybe resilience. We are trying to make sure this we are building for posterity. We are building what you call future-centric or future-proof organizations. That ability to adapt and continue to transform is also triggering many organizations currently to try to pivot towards a more adaptive business operating model. We are going to define what a term is along the way, but these are some of the things that may trigger organizations to rethink about their target operating model. Sometimes it's culture where you find this no decision making maybe is sabotaged in terms of accountability and also innovation. Maybe we are not innovating as fast. As we speak, actually, I'm working on one assignment where we are dealing with that, where you find some tech innovations that are supposed to be done in that organization, they are not being deployed as fast as the stakeholders would expect. So you initiate a product, but it takes forever before you launch it. By the time you launch it, your market assumption is already obsolete, meaning it's no longer relevant. So the product become irrelevant it's dead on arrival. By the time you're launching it, it's already passed by time. Why? It took time to design it. That's a big challenge we are seeing also in the market, which can help us understand why we need to have very adaptive target operating model. Now let's build case for again. Some of the things that, again, it's almost just a repetition of what you've done there, but some is because of quest to improve operational efficiency and performance. If you find you're not performing, there's a tendency to say, let's restructure. And I know you have seen this. Anytime you have an organization that is not performing, the first thing the leadership might tell you is, let's restructure. So you hear people talking about restructuring. So let's restructure because maybe we are not performing, or our top line or bottom line is not well. Sometimes it's cost reduction. You've seen where companies are restructuring or they are changing their business operating model because of cost. It will become too expensive to deliver because you finance at home. A target operating model has a cost attached to it because it's an organization of systems and how we deliver our value. Some is because of misalignment to our purpose and vision and mission. So you may find you're literally adrift to what we stand for in terms of why we exist, the mission, the vision, and all that. Some is because of unclear sustainable benefit realization. We are not realizing the benefit. Like I have seen companies where you deploy a lot of technology, spend millions of money with technology, but still you continue even hiring more employees. Then you are like, I thought the technology was to help me scale down on the human capital or optimize, but yet you deploy that technology, but still you continue actually hiring every day. In fact, I've seen that's a consistent issue. So there is no benefit realization, especially from investment like technology. New acquisition and merger can trigger changes in TOM. So let's say you have a company buying another company. So when you integrate in two businesses, one company B has bought company C, in the integration, you may find you require to change the target operating model again. Leadership sometimes, or maybe you're trying to shift the culture, that can also impact our basis maybe for reviewing our strategy. And then, of course, quest for planetary impact. We want to make impact in the market. We want to scale. We want to globally, expand. Maybe you had a structure that is serving you only in Congo, in Mozambique, in Nigeria, and now you want to spread it across many other countries. You cannot use the same model when you're going national. That's why you have international, sorry. That's why you find global multinationals, they will adopt a certain target operating model to be able to serve the wider planet than just a confine of a certain economy. These are triggers in the market that can affect how we design our business. And depending on which ones that your organization is facing, you might consider different pathways for target operating model. We didn't go through a very much in-depth details, but I think these are some of the things that, of course, need to be considered on why we are changing. So it's always good in the process to begin by, defining the problem space which you are crafting the solution for. You're going to see that later. The why we are changing, if at all we are changing, and we are an ongoing organization. That means we are going concern. We don't just need to change for the sake of changing. You have to question, why are we changing? And then, of course, building from purpose, not just process. So as we change, we make sure at least we are doing this from a place of purpose. I'm going to give you some few examples and some relatable cases I know it might be familiar with you, and you'll see how they can impact the business. Let's define the term first. What is a target operating model? That's a question for us. Now, this may look very clouded in terms of a lot of stuff, in terms of information, but actually this slide summarizes everything. So it's purely a systematic design, which we break the complexity of an organization into logical components that, when applied, of course, and using some design techniques, we're able to derive value. It's actually it's the design through which we produce value. So on one side, we have what you call the business model, we have an operating model, and we have an economic model. I won't focus on the economic model and business model first. I think I'm going to define those two later in another slide, but we're focusing more on the operating model. You can see some 6 functions here that have to be all put into place so that you design this. We have the services and solutions. I like calling them solutions. We have our governance, that decision making and leaderships and all that. Technology, which is the ecosystem. You have the sometimes where we are sourcing materials. Even in manufacturing, you have the aspect of sourcing raw materials. Why is the application? This is why you find, for example, companies settling around industrial area. Even manufacturing, because there are some economics of scales maybe you want to enjoy based on that centralization of other peers who are doing the same. Maybe centrality of some specific market incentives given by the government, you never know. There's also data organization and performance on how you track performance. And then finally, there's a people, culture, and capability, how you strengthen. So all these are components that has to be put in place when you're designing a target operating model. You cannot just look at one and just build a model out of it. You don't just look at the products only, for example, the services, and you just design all functions, HR. We have a tendency just to build it just from functions, HR, IT, finance. But that's a very shallow way of looking at it. You have to look at it at the 6 dimensions before even designing the kind of model. Now, I want to demystify that target operating model is not organizational structure. It is not the operating structure. When I use the word structure, that's a byproduct. Structures are informed by the target operating model. So you have to have the target operating model first before now getting byproducts of what you call structures now, the organization's designs. Those are byproducts of the same. So you have to understand your business, design it, and then, of course, keep measuring it for checking whether we have efficiency. We're going to see that along the way slowly as I give some examples. So continued definition of this. It's a way of defining how we deliver value and how we execute strategy across people, process, technology, governance, and also the structure. Now we have a difference between business model and operating model. Business model is what value you create and who for. So you define, I create this value for who. So you have a niche in terms of for, and then you have the value. So there's a value at the niche. That one is what you call a business model. But the operating is how you deliver now that value sustainably and repeatably, consistently throughout the process. That's now the operating model. So when you're doing target operating model, mostly you have to have these two at the same time. That's why they are joined at the hip somehow. So on one side, you have a visibility of the business model on the value created and for who. But on the other side, you have an articulation of how do I deliver this value sustainably, repeatably, and you can reproduce that value consistently. So you have to handle these two concurrently. Now, so as you do this, you find you have to think about the function. Those are the functions and other things like productions, you have HR, you have the ICT and many other functions. Those are functions. You have process, the processes that take place within the organization, like production process, marketing process, reporting process. Those are process-based, okay? So you may find different organizations having different approaches for this. And I'll say some of these can be very self-sabotaging, and you're going to see that maybe towards the example, when you do the examples. We have what we call customer journey. There are those who design from customer journeys. You look at where does the customer begin their process, their journey. And then you say maybe you start from the outreach, how you get them in the market through marketing. And then from there, maybe you have a sales center where they come and they enjoy they kind of access the products or the solutions that they are buying. That's a customer journey. Maybe that now has to go through the back end where it's processed. That we call transactional processing. That's a processing engine. And then probably the control. And then finally, you can have maybe the support and enablers. So that's kind of a customer journey. But then you have also capability-based term. This is based on capacity and capability, where you start from low capacity to deep depth capacity. This happens so much, especially in education institutions. So you find you have, if you're training, if you're in a faculty and you have certificate programs, you have diploma, you have degrees, you can align your term model in a way that then, of course, in the initial stage, maybe you're offering certificates. So there, of course, you require capability of guys who have just done degree to become the tutors. But as you go to offer PhD, you may discover you need a bit more in-depth capability required to deliver such kind of value. You may start from a low-level capacity if you're in the education sector, or even healthcare. In healthcare, you find healthcare, if you access a hospital, you probably just be seen by nurses. So they structure the tri-age, where you go first to be attended by nurses, and you take parameters like the vitals. They take for you the blood pressure, they will take for you the temperature. And the capacity required is quite minimal there. But notice, if your case become more complicated, like an ICU, you have to set up the ICU in the back end somehow. It's an escalation portal. So that's a capability issue again. So you can see it in education services. You can see it in a hospital environment, where the graduation of the customer journey is based on the complexity and the capability required for each stage. Then, of course, you can have what you call purpose-led term. You're going to see purpose-led term mostly is defined by deliver value from your core missional mandate first. Everything else becomes secondary. So let me attend to you to the need first. I can later be talking about how to recover my money. I know very few will be able to do that because we are more profit-centered. So there are those who design their design principles by, let me secure my business first. I will deal with the service and my relationships later. And it's a very, very non-sustainable way of doing business. Yet, that is actually what you find mostly in the market. You find is where, let me secure the business. So you find even we mis-sell. Sometimes you end up mis-selling. And I've seen this in many financial services. So you mis-sell. So you kind of overpromise, secure the business, And then later now, you start now looking at how do I sustain you? We develop customer relationship management afterwards. But already somebody is missold. I'm servicing a product actually did not want, literally. Now, those are the earlier stage, what you call product-based kind of designs. So you're trying to move towards what you call purpose-led. Let me generate the value first, and then the value will attract, or the impact that I make will attract maybe how relationship is going to be downstream. Again, it's many of things. I don't want to spend more time on this. It's a lot of many design philosophies around it. Asking yourself questions like which customers, which products, which channels, which capability do I require? That's the what. Then you have a strategy component. Strategy, of course, feed into the how, your structure, the culture. And this is where now target operating model should be reviewed as part of the strategy process. The geographies, the site. If you're multinational, the way you relate is quite very different from how you are just a local company within a local environment. Then the governance aspect in terms of how decisions are being made and accountability levels. So this forms what you call work structures and the microstructures, the JDs, the coordination collaboration mechanism. Collaboration is actually key currently. If you find the organization where departments are silos and they are not able to collaborate, chances are it's a Tom model issue or culture. Mostly I've seen those two. Either the target operating model has an issue or the culture has an issue. So you find one of the killers for business success is silos. So you hear finances, as we are finance, you guys don't understand what happens in finance. You go to IT, they tell you, you don't know what happens in IT. So they operate in silos. Most of the times is because of the Tom issue. You can almost self-diagnose that. It's either a target operating model issue or culture, if not culture. Those two, you cannot go far away from those two. So, and that's how we operationalize the strategy, by looking at all these components together. So it's an overarching view of the enterprise strategy. And therefore, you can't just look at one and fail to do at the other. We're going to see some few examples. Let's talk about some principles. And I want to give some example here, which can be relatable. These are actually some things I have interacted with in the market. For example, these are examples just to help us understand. Now, I know I won't mention the name because even and probably when I explain, you might know them. There are two oil companies. They are in the petroleum sector. And one usually, this is a company that I know it's almost in all countries in Africa, most of them. And these are two different companies. One use what you call a safety fast principle, and the other one use what you call a fast delivery, speed, purely speed principle. Now, for the one that is safety fast, what do? They say nothing is more important than safety, so let's secure our safety fast. What do? The implication here is that, and this I'm saying this is because it's a practical example. If I put the names here, you'll know the brands. One of them, as I say, both of them are in the oil. If a tanker is on transit and it gets dark, because them is safety fast, they stop where they are, and you'll find those tankers sleeping on the highway somewhere. They don't go at night. So they don't proceed. If the driver is reach around 8 p.m., they stop where they are, and that's where they are going. The driver is going to spend. Why? That is shaped by the principle of the safety first, because they are prioritizing safety before anything else. So that means if you go to their policy, that's why I always tell people, don't copy-paste policies. Don't try to copy-paste policies. I've seen people being lazy. So you find you want to copy-paste a policy from this company A to company B, just because you're in the same sector, it is not sustainable. You might be doing the same business, but because of your target operating model principle, you might require different policies. So you may find these guys who are doing safety fast, they will say no moving past 6. You copy and you think that is the ideal, but you have a different model. This guy may say mandatory rest period because you're prioritizing safety. So drivers, you have to rest. Now you can see it is a term issue, but it is coming to manifest even in how we do even our employee wellness, our well-being, and all those things. Safety performance metrics override delivery KPIs. I don't care how many trips you have gone, were they safe? So the safety performance might be priority in their scorecard. Processes here is about the route planning. You have to get the best route zones that are safe, not where there are potholes. And so you better use a long trip, but you still arrive safely. That will be a safety first principle. Real-time safety monitoring. So they'll deploy systems to monitor safety. Decision-making protocols for field staff who favor caution. So they will make sure they're able to fast respond to an emergency. So they make sure they have field supervisors and coordinators who are able to respond to an emergency if it happens, because they are prioritizing safety. So the signal here is we'll rather delay than risk our lives or environment. Now that's a safety first principle business. Now let's look at the other one. The other one is a fast delivery. Let's arrive fast and get this product to the last mile, to the customer immediately as soon as possible. So the customer timelines must be met no matter. For the first one, they will call the customer, tell the customer, unfortunately, we were supposed to have arrived by now, but because of safety concerns, kindly allow us to, they will negotiate. This second one, no matter what happens, if they tell you 6 hours, the product has to be there, it is 6 hours. They will better ferry another, save your truck if at all one truck has an issue. So the customer service must be met no matter what, even when the safety issues may be an issue. Behavioral implication. The drivers are encouraged or expected to reach the destination on time, even if it means driving into the night. You notice, same business, but different philosophies of business. What is shaping them? Target operating model. They are selling the same fuel. They probably even have the same qualification in terms of capacity for the people that they use in terms of capability, but different model. Policies here you'll find they may have bonus incentive on time delivery. So they'll pay bonus because of how fast you've delivered. Route optimization to optimize speed, not safety. Tolerance for calculated operational risk. You can compromise along the way, but you reach the destination on time. So calculation in terms of operational risk may be compromised. Processes here you find they have real-time GPS to track you that you're moving at the right speed. So they'll put your tracker on the track, but it's to test whether why are you moving slow? Why are you stopping? They'll keep on asking that. For the number one company, even if you stop, they might be okay because they say maybe you're stopping because you have discovered it's raining. Because of the lane, you might have a compromised safety. You better not move. These are the guys, even if it's raining, they don't want you to stop. That's an issue. Then, of course, the dynamic rerouting and, around, when there are congestions on the road or traffic, they will reroute that. So emphasis, of course, is on downtime, less emphasis on downtime and more on speed. Culture here will be delivery defines our performance. Now, notice these are two completely different organizations, but they are completely having different perspectives of business. And this is why we need to be very cautious. Don't rush. I am one of the people who are known in the market to try not to do. People like what you call benchmarking. I have a bit of a different view when it comes to benchmarking, because before you benchmark, you need to understand the target operating model philosophy of that organization. So if you just benchmark and you just shine and say, oh, we have benchmarked with 10 companies, do you understand their business model first before you go and start copy-pasting their model? They could be operating on different, even purpose-led, and very different from another, completely. So if you try to copy-paste what I do, you will automatically be copying failure, because we are not informed by the same philosophy. For the example of these two is process design. The safety first is a mandatory risk check. For the other guys, they don't care about that risk. They'll be more optimized for time. Policies on the safety first is zero harm policy. Make sure you finish the work and you have nobody you have harmed, or the environment, there is no hazardous implications. For the other guys who are fast, if it's the speed, high speed customer satisfaction focus. Performance, KPI, you have safety measures here. The other one is on-time delivery. So even your KPIs will be different. Culture and value here. This is a bit conservative because we even make sure at least we don't harm the ecosystem. We don't harm, we are safety. So we don't harm even the environment. The other, guys, is competitive, aggressive, result-driven. I can step on you, but I get the results. That is it, faster. Governance. On the first one, they are keen to have incident tracking. But the other one is rapid escalation pathway, so that speed is enhanced. Technology and Abra, for the first one, is they will use telematics for driver fatigue. And the other one is AI route optimizers to optimize speed. So for the first one, they will even be telling the driver, stop, take a rest. Yeah, obey, I don't know, Pogomotros do what? They'll tell you, take a break for your wellness, 5 minutes health break, or a health, what do you call it? The healthiest naps and all that. They'll tell a driver to do that. For the first delivery, guys, go. This is another alternative route, until you get it on time. I hope by now you started seeing how design principles for the business can affect how structures also respond to our structure, to our business model. I want to use some global scenarios that can help you understand some present, maybe some global design. Scenario is what we call product-centric, again, delivery model. This is where you have each product or solution line operates as a mini business unit. In fact, this used to be the most common in the market. Why? Because traditionally, organizations started from products. I don't know that this probably, for those who are working in different organizations, that this is something that you can relate with. Many of the cases in the past, if I take most of the organizations in the past, their business was started from product. You have product 1, product 2, product 3, product 4, and then each product has its own marketing team. Each product has its own operations, processing guys. Each product has its own leadership. So you have product owners. So that used to be the case. But I know currently we are shifting from that model. So a good example, for example, Spotify, I know we like it and it's a good content platform. They have what you call squad tribe chapter model. The organizations around product verticals. So you have a whole structure, music. So you have music is a product. You have music director, probably. Music engineers, music sales, music support, all that. Then you have podcast on it themselves, and then you have advertisements. Everyone is a vertical, product 1, product 2, product 3, like that. So there's no end-to-end ownership of the entire business. You can't act across. Every product is a silo. It's a very common model. So you go let's say you may find financial institution, let's say a bank, where the product, let's say a product like credit, let's say loans, a product like treasury, it has its own end-to-end within the product itself. You can't cross-sell. It's very hard because everyone, you may find, you enter a business from one angle. I know I used to see these insurance companies. So insurance where you have general insurance, life insurance, that's a product. So you have a whole structure for life insurance, and another whole structure for general insurance, a whole structure for medical insurance. It is still operative even today, and sometimes it's very inefficient. Because if I come to that insurance company as a medical insurance customer, the guys in the life have no visibility. Yet I'm a human. I may also need life. So it becomes even very difficult. And I know for those who may know a bit of how financial services work, it's one of the struggles. I have done quite a number of projects in terms of transformation and structuring, actually around that, moving from that kind of a structure into a more of a hybrid integrated structure. So that's just an example of a product center. So it's suitable for innovation forecast, where you're kind of maybe incubating products initially, and then maybe later they can be deployed in the wider ecosystem. So health tech, edtech, logistics companies may also relate to this. So the way structure is a bit more cross-functional pods aligned by product. So every product, it's like a business by itself. Sometimes they call them SBU, a strategic business unit. Every SBU, you form a structure. So performance measures, of course, are like the product NPS, how you release, the velocity of how you release the launch, how you launch the product, how products are being used, the uptake. If I have a mobile app, how often, how many people are downloading that app? Those are kind of the metrics I'm going to kind of track there. Governance, of course, is things like product councils, product committees. Councils are like committees generally. First, review boards for innovations, customer success metrics, and all that. That's a product-centric delivery model. We have another one we call shared service model. This has been very common, especially in the last 15 years. It's quite very critical for big organizations. Mostly they will say the non-core repetitive functions like HR, finance, procurement, IT are all centralized under one portal we call shared service center. And they serve all the business units. So the customer-facing or core delivery teams remain decentralized. So it's like at the operational side or enablers and support, you consolidate like a center. And this is the logic behind, for those who study a lot, what we call service centers. You'll find, let's say in India, you find these big companies, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, they will outsource some business processing somewhere. It's also the same thing. So they'll create a certain service shared, portal in a certain location, and it's a high volume, but supporting everybody else. It's also a model that evolves from there. So from here, of course, you find companies like Unilever, Nestle. These are kind of fast-moving consumer goods in beverage, food and beverage. You may find they actually applying such kind of a model. So most adoptees are mostly, companies that have cross-regional. So instead of having all these HR in every country, you have a one collapsed and IT collapsed, they all support the entire business. It's a good one, especially for multinationals. A deal for large multi-branch organizations is a bit, good in sometimes what we call cost responsiveness, a bit more cost-friendly. The structure, of course, business unit retain their front-end autonomy in terms of the last mile, especially the service side of servicing the customer. But of course, the shared service director, so not self-service, the shared services center director is centralized. So here, SLAs must be very strict from processes. Because if you are supporting multiple business, you don't want to incline on one and sabotage the other. So you have to have strict SLA if you're in this kind of an organization. So you actually structure governance for SLAs. You find committees that actually come to enforce SLAs across multiple functions. You'll find that very common because compliance for SLAs become the key issue here. Service automation is key, so you find they have help desk where you log in issues into the help desk and they go through that. So you find that common in shared service model. Number 3, the last one, maybe for this, there are so many actually, have almost 6, 7, we may not have time to go through this. What we call functional separation, where distinct sales and business development models are kind of structures within the organization. So you have sales teams, they focusing on short term, and the guys who do more long term, like BD guys, they focus on partnerships, market intelligence, they kind of break the ground. But you have sales team that are more for closing deals, and they only come at the end to close the deal. So you create an enabling environment to establish market potential through partnerships and market intelligence. That's business development. So you may find you separate BD and sales. So BD prepare the market opportunity. The sales guys come and close the deals. You find that kind of a structure. Sometimes we find this common to what you call B2B engagement. And what is the Amazon, they apply this model. So you'll have separate sales executives who have some quota targets in terms of how they drive business. And then you have strategy BD who enable environment. They will partner with governments, they will partner with the other aggregators at a high level. Then because they have created a relationship, the sales guys come and now close the deal because the market has kind of already been established. To work very well for fast-scaling B2B focus, innovation-heavy sectors. You find like software as service, that's what we call SaaS. The tech company, we call them the ones that do what we call software as a service. These are Kina Oracle sometimes, you deploy such. And even currently, you may find these guys who are selling this CRM, ERP, Akina Zoho, all those things. They actually apply this kind of a model. Okay. To work very well, especially for those crowd services generally. So depending on which business you are in, you cannot just use the same model. So the structure, of course, you have 15 verticals that own leadership, dotted line coordination via strategy operations and all that. You may find their metrics here will be more leads, partnerships, market expansions, what you call regional footprints, and also the client retention might be key here. Governance around pipeline, because you may have so many leads, they are not converting for such. There's a risk there. You can a lot of potential, but conversion is low. So you may find that as a unique problem with such kind of structure. Our time is gone, so I don't want to deliver you so much. I think I want to almost maybe come to the close for this. I think I don't know. This is just a small graphics in terms of when you're designing target operating model, the steps you use. You always plan by establishing critical success factors. You have to decide the why. The why are you changing? Why are you modeling? And which pathway support your business? Is it a share service? Is it a product model? Is it the purpose-led? We're going to see something around purpose-led here as we continue towards the end. And then you assess the current status that you identify the gap. You design. I won't go into the finer details, but this kind of, you can take a screenshot for this. This is generally how the steps you follow to come up with a design or a target operating model within your organization. The critical success imperatives is make sure at least you engage all the stakeholders. Both customers, decision makers, shareholders have to be involved. Then look for data, for evidence. Then there must be proper communication and change management throughout the process because it can break the organization. Then, of course, there are regulatory issues sometimes, which kind of like insurance companies, the regulator, most of the insurance regulation agencies, mostly, they prefer the product-based. So they'll tell you, stick to your life insurance, stick to your general insurance and create a structure. So you have general manager life insurance. So they even dictate. So you may find now if you're in that company, if that sector, and you're trying to pivot towards what I may call customer centricity, you'll have a problem with the regulator. So understand also that environment. Then agile implementation, you can start small iterative process that can help you learn and fail fast and recover fast. And then, of course, consider governance as critical factor around it. So consideration in terms of principles, of course, how does your enterprise, in terms of strategy, get to cascade its strategy down to the business, lines of business? That's critical. Then your line of business level, you'll be thinking about how the line of business strategy is translated to the core business functions, like the sales function, the marketing function, the operation process, and all that. The core business functions now, where you go now to where the work happens, how does the company define core business functions and how do they compare to the industry peers? As I said, wear a bit of a caution when you're benchmarking, because unless you know that you're benchmarking to another company that has the same principles, you might be comparing oranges with apples. Support functions, these are like the HR and all that, which functions should support your business. And then finally, business processes. You have to review your core business processes. What you call end-to-end processes are going to be also affected by the fact that you have adopted a certain design principle. Now, first principles that helps reinforce that. Number one is, and I'm going to run this very fast, that first of all, you should deliver value from your core business. When you see companies starting a CSR, I tell them that you're not purpose-led. Because when you're purpose-led, you don't need a CSR because you derive value from your core business. So the redemptive value first approach is very key for a purpose-led target operating model. So all operations must promote human dignity, society impact, and all that. All operations. Number two is relationships over transactions. You're not necessarily focused on the transactions, but relationships that you create. You know, there are guys where they'll just sell you something and they know very well tomorrow you don't need that thing that they're selling you. But because they need your money, they sell it. So sell fast. They don't prioritize relationships. There are people where you build relationship first, then I can come and now generate business. So you honor, compassion, truthful through the system that you have. It's more relationship driven. Then this long-term legacy over just short-term wins. I don't necessarily just want to report the sales and the top line. I want to see sustainability. And sometimes for such, you accrue value long-term. Now, for you who is working, you may find it to be a very difficult thing to champion this within your organization because CEO want to see or the commercial director want to see sale immediately. So balancing those two is going to be a problem. But the question is, if you're looking for sustainability, you have to integrate purpose first principles. Then there's people-centeredness in terms of how you make sure at least that people are the center of it, through the transparency, stewardship of the resources, because you know that you owe this even to God himself and also to creation. That's why you're talking about climate issues. Because if you waste resources, you're actually sabotaging the entire ecosystem. Then, of course, corrective accountability. All of us have shared outcomes and responsibility for this. Those are purpose-first principles. So a good example in a healthcare, if a company is saying, a hospital is saying, we restore dignity and hope through holistic health, what do? They make sure every policy must reflect compassion. They make sure the processes changes must simplify access for patients. This is now a healthcare example. And the tech adoption should be only if there's a proof for improved care. You don't just entrust machines to take care of your patients. You make sure at least there's a value for that. And the staff training includes ethics and empathy. So every of your employee must have empathy. That can be a principle that can help you shape a purpose-led healthcare organization. I won't focus for this. I think I want to stop there. Just some opportunities in this space that you can enjoy benefits later through us. I've come to the end of the session generally, but of course, just to mention that we certify strategy professionals, where this issue of target operating model has become part of strategy knowledge. So you can become a certified strategy professional, and also you can become a certified strategy consultant through a series of coaching that we do. So feel free to engage us and reach out to us to be able to get more information about this, on how you can become a strategy professional and how you can become a strategy consultant as well. We also do free diagnosis for organizations to test their robustness. And one of the things we actually test is the target operating model generally as part of this. So we help, provide an assessment, like you go to a laboratory and check whether your health status, the parameters are okay. You'll assess with a number of things, and actually it also includes a term here, just to assess whether your organization strategy is robust enough to deliver value that you desire. So we test like several things are shown on the screen here. We also have a strategy execution masterclass that we organize often, and we are mobilizing a program for January, which we run for approximately around 4 months. And it's a robust certification that you can get out of this. You become a strategy anchored professional. And we go through different strategy, what we call blueprints, like Balance Scorecard, the Lean Startup, the 4DX, the Hoshnikanli, and many others. We also have our own, what we call Inquest Strategy for Impact model that we deploy, and we will be able to take you through this. So it's a very robust coaching. So it's not a training, but it's a coaching. But it starts with a 5 full-day bootcamp, strategy bootcamp, purely focusing on execution, and then a 4 months coaching where we're able to get a certification. I'm going to park there and allow any question. Kindly feel free to put a comment on the chat if I thought there's a question, or unmute, and you can ask me any question relating to today's session. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope at least we have learned 1 or 2 things in how we design target operating models, even if not probably in a depth, but at least to have an idea of how it works. So, any question? We are good?
Good morning, Gabriel.
Good morning to you.
Okay. Mine, I just want to appreciate for this session, though I was on the way to work. So sometimes there was some noise, so I could not get you clearly. But what I want to appreciate and what I've captured today, and I'm happy the way you have explained the safety first principle, comparing to the other delivery. So I've captured that area very well, and I know I appreciate that I've learned something. And thank you for organizing. Though it was very early, we called it out time because this one it's like I was just supposed to have to sit down and have my pen and paper so that I can learn a lot regarding this fact, the fact that in organization don't practice such, but it has been a learning process to me. Thank you so much.
Welcome, Lydia. Thank you so much for attending.